Welcome everybody to another edition of ProSportsBlogging.com. Great interviews, sports interviews. These ones are all hockey, especially the ones that I'm doing. And it's my tremendous pleasure to be joined by Hockey Hall of Fame member Marcel Dionne. Marce, thank you very much.
Thank you very much
for doing this for us. It's an absolute treat to have you here with the legendary career you had offensively. We'll get into lots of different things about that, but just for the people, just for the record, 1,348 games, 731 goals, 1,040 assists. You see a theme here with 1,000, 1,771 points. It's an absolutely unbelievable total. When you sit back here now, the number of years later now that you've retired, and you sit back and you look at that number, what's the first thing to come to your mind when you hear me say it or anybody else that says it to you?
Actually, nobody really cares.
I do. I care.
I know. You're the best. But you know, a fascinating story. And I'm just very secure about what I have done the last 22 years away from the game. It's just that they'll remember number 1, number 2, number 3, and they skip number 4. They go 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And I hear that a lot. And you just asked me this question, what is it like, and so on. And what I know for a fact, looking back, is just, and people have a tough time to admit what I have done, is just, I was an offensive force. I knew how to score goals. I knew how to play with the puck. I enjoyed the game very much. And when you compare players to this and that, for me it was just a question winning a Stanley Cup.
Right.
You win a Stanley Cup, and now it's up to here, up to there, but it didn't change my lifestyle. It didn't change anything. You're only as good, Liam, as what you can do, what you're with. You win with management, you win with ownership. It's a team concept. But at the same time, you know what? It was a great part of my career, and it's true. You look at it, you look at the stats, and you say, a lot of times says, well, he played in Los Angeles, you know. He didn't have any pressure. And I says, oh, no, really? So you mean I just stand by the blue line, just to wait for the opportunities? The first guy I saw doing that was Wayne Gretzky, and he was pretty good at it. So you take your lumps and this and that, you make fun of it, and you know what? Life goes on, and as long as you stay in the public, Liam, like we see each other quite a bit,
yep.
People don't forget. You go back in time, and they look at it, says, geez, you've done this? You won all these awards? But I did it the quiet way.
Yeah, I guess you did. And you're right, you touched on it, the Stanley Cup and the playoffs. I mean, you get out of Detroit early, and we're going to touch on that in just a second. And then even in L.A., you had that great run going in '82, and the miracle on Manchester game and knocking off the Edmonton Oilers, and unfortunately weren't able to continue from there. But really, at the end of the day, management has got to give you some support. You had the Triple Crown line, and beyond that, to be fair, you know, there wasn't a lot of substance there to get the L.A. Kings over the hump at that time.
Yeah, well, you know what? It just feels like the Toronto Maple Leafs. You know, you try to get it. Now you got Brian Burke, but it takes a long time.
Right.
Once we had sort of a nucleus, that's when you got to make sure what's the next move, because it takes time. A lot of times people get frustrated, says, well, how come you keep on moving the lines? Sometimes it takes a year, 2, 3 years to find the right people. For me, for that line, it was Dave Taylor. So I'm at camp. Geez, you know, he's aggressive, he's fast. Again, you just feed the guy. Corner man, right? Left side, what happens, and it's not tough to explain, but guys come and play, they're happy to play with you. You know why? Because they'll get the puck. They'll get the puck. They get to touch it. They get chances. There's times you watch in the NHL, and that's a fact. The guy played a whole game, never touched the puck once.
Yep.
He might have did and dump it in. So, you know, the guy says, oh, I did my job, okay, I got a sweat, but that when Charlie Simmer came along, suddenly it was the perfect line, which you don't see anymore. You see a good pair, but that third guy, when Charlie came, he was the front guy, very good. Boy, does it make the game interesting and fun to play, because as a kid, that's what you grew up. You played shitty hockey, move the puck, do this and do that, and we were pretty good defensively too.
Yes, you were.
You know why? Because we had the puck most of the time, so we didn't have to worry about it.
Well, and for the record, I mean, you're the first line with all 3 guys recording 100 points. I mean, I know we can get lost in the minutiae and the stats, and I typically have a habit of doing that, but let's go back to something else then, Marce, and go back to where a lot of it started. You know, you're drafted 2nd overall to the Detroit Red Wings, and like I was saying, I was just telling you as we walked down the hallway here, we had your, you know, a guy you know pretty well, Phil Esposito, on the hot seat, I guess, if you want to call it for lack of better terms, yesterday, and talking about his career in Chicago, which obviously a lot of people this generation wouldn't even know about.
Yeah.
I wonder if the same about you in Detroit. And you know, you think of the coaches that went through there, and also more the management maybe. I think that maybe under Ned Harkness, that team was floundering as it entered the decade of the 70s. If it's controversial, I don't know, maybe shed some light on that for our viewers right now about what happened with you in Detroit.
Well, I was the second round overall after Guy Lafleur went to Detroit, and you know, everybody watched the draft today, but it was not like that in those days. Most of the guys didn't even show up. You had the first round and so on. So Detroit gave me a call. Montreal was trying to make a move and this, that, and we were the number 1, 2 French Canadians. And those were tough years too. I don't know if you remember with the FLQ.
Yep.
You know, Red this year, Laporte, James Cross. There was a lot of things going on in Quebec, and so I played in Ontario. Came from Drummondville,
Yep.
Quebec. So there was a lot of whatever it is. You're a bad guy. You're an English guy, right? Well, I went on and went to Detroit, but when I came in, the great of all time, Gordie Howe, retired just prior to that summer. So I wish he would have had one more year, I think, just for myself to figure out, hey, this is the NHL, that's what it's all about. But I had Alex Delvecchio, Mickey Redmond, and so on. And, you know, right off the bat, I was, you know, like, I was 20, you couldn't get drafted. Now the guys are 18, right?
Right.
You have maturity, but you're not really mature. Now you have to figure out what the game's all about. And the game, when you first start, it's every new building, every new city. It's exciting. You just, hey, the game is great. You're having a great time. Everything is new, right? You fly charter. You've never been on a charter flight before. But as this went on, then you realize, you know, we got to win some games. We got to do this. And there was some issues there with Ned Harkness. Very nice man. You know what? He came from Cornell. Matter of fact, Dryden
Right.
played for him. But we never found the right ingredients there. Then had coach turnover. Had Doug Barkley,
Yep.
great guy. Had Johnny Wilson, Ted Garvin, and then my 4th year I had Alex Delvecchio, which I enjoy all the guys, but they don't have the personnel either. It's pretty tough, but coaching was totally different. Man, you had one coach.
One coach, no assistants.
You know, now you have
6.
Well, you need a cup just to move guys. They have no room. They sit there. They can't move. But when I look at it, I wish I would have had this, been educated and taught the game. Mind you, nobody could teach me how to score, and you still can't.
No.
But you know, you're an athlete, and you want to be at the best as you can be. So if you have this whole group helping you out training, I mean, we had no ice during the summer, nothing. So those 4 years for me was just like an experiment, and then suddenly I'm doing my things. But 2 great things that happened to me. 72 series
Yep.
that I was part of. I didn't play. I was there. Really gave me an outlook. I says, now I'm with the greats. And if you look back in that series, a lot of guys became Hall of Famers.
Yeah, 13, I think.
13
or 14.
Not bad players, right?
Yeah,
and
pretty
the fact that I saw tremendous speed, and now I understood a little bit more, like being on a big ice surface, and where do I fit in? And I never felt like I was a superstar. I just felt that I'm a performer. A little guy, 5'7", 5 foot. I forget now. I was 5'7.5". I think I'm 6'6" now. I'm shrinking. Anyway, make it more interesting is just say, well, you think I'm afraid of a big guy. It's not true. He says, well, you're afraid to go in the corners? Absolutely. If I'm going to go against a guy that's 6'4", no, I want to go in and get the puck. I'm going to show him how, be smart.
Yeah.
And so those 4 years for me was just, didn't make the playoffs, and that was tough. But I go back, Mario Lemieux didn't make his playoffs
No,
the
he
first
didn't.
4. So is Steve Yzerman.
Yeah.
Things evolve around them. And for me, I left Detroit going to LA, but there's nothing like the Red Wings. And the guy that saved that franchise, I came under Bruce Norris, and I don't want to go on and on and on, but there's no doubt in my mind it was Mike Ilitch.
Mike Ilitch, yeah.
He did, and people forget how he did it. He had some tough years, really tough years. And even Stevie Y was, they didn't know. And until Bowman got there, and suddenly Scotty walks in, it's like a wow. And, but Scotty knows the game. He makes the game simple. Because I played for him too, like those Team Canadas and all that stuff. And that was a change, and there's no doubt. When I left there, Detroit was a hockey franchise, hockey town, but they made it to the next level, and you know what they are today.
You talk about Gordie Howe and not having the opportunity to have him there that year. Just confirm something if you can, because the story is he's the guy who nicknamed you Little Beaver. Is that true?
Well, that's not
Watching you
true.
skate in training
No,
camp?
it's not true. I know somebody's a friend of mine in junior hockey. We went to Montreal, and if you remember that, they love to make fun of me, so everybody still makes fun of me. You make fun of me anyway. They were the little midget wrestlers.
Yeah.
They would call Little Beaver, Sky Low Low, and all that stuff in one player. And that's what I would take a hit all the time, and I kind of laugh, you know. And that's fun part of life.
Yeah.
And he says, Marcel, he says, we got you. Guys, there's always a guy that finds things about you, right? You know, he says, hey, Little Beaver. I says, who's Little Beaver? So he's got the front page of the sports section. Here's Little Beaver, right? He's wrestling. He says, you're Little Beaver. Well, Gordy, when I went to Detroit, he loved that. So is Alex Delvecchio. And to this day, Alex Delvecchio, believe it or not, calls him, hey, Beef. I says, Alex, please don't mention, don't go there. But Gordy loved that. Hey, Beef, get over to Little Beaver. So
Okay.
now you bring something back, but that's it. I don't want to hear about it.
Yeah, just you and me talking to yourself.
If I hear, it's true. I'd be in Los Angeles, I'm skating. If somebody said, hey, Beaver, I had to stop because this guy knew he was a personal friend.
That's awesome. Well, it's great to hear the origin of where it was. I know Gordy how loved
This is the true story now. There's no other stories.
See, we're getting it right here. We're getting the gospel right here on prosportsblogging.com. That's what this site's all about. Mars, you know, your transition in LA, but yet you're piling up the numbers. I mean, 77 points your rookie year, and I want to touch on Team Canada 72. You didn't play in the 8 games, but neither did Dale Talon. In fact, neither did 8 or 9 other guys. Dale Talon has told me to my face it was the greatest hockey experience of his life, and he didn't play in the series. He just touched on it. Maybe if you could just talk a little bit about what it was like, especially in Russia, especially as things were progressing and then the eventual comeback. And if you can, segue into 76, which you mentioned Scotty Bowman. He calls it the greatest hockey team ever assembled at one time, and you sure played a big role on that. So maybe if you could, your international experience. I know you had others with world championships, but
Yes.
specifically those.
Well, for being 20 years old and being asked to go to camp, first of all, there was a lot of controversy too. There's other guys could have went, but you got to go back. There was the first time we're in that situation. We're going to play the Russians. You need a training camp, so you need players to train. So 34, 35, 36 guys. So you have inter-squad game and so on. So you get there, and it's my second year. I'm looking at, you kidding me, Serge Savard and Guy Lapointe, and I was good at looking at the defensemen. Everybody else didn't bother me, but all the guys, and Ken Dryden and so on, and Yvan Connery.
Yeah.
And to me, the experience was like, sometimes things happen, but it takes years to reflect back. And it was the greatest experience. And I think that with all the DVDs, you have all kinds of stuff, now you go back. It was more of a game. It was a political issue that we were involved. It's our system against their system. It's communism, and we got freedom and so on. And it's true, it was. Until we went there. And I'm always asking myself my question, if we would have started the series over there, what kind of results we would have had? You know, let's go vice versa. Because I think we were in shock when we went to Russia, watching people in food lines.
Yeah.
People going to Lenin's tomb, watch somebody that has been dead for years, and the guy was a bad guy, and thousands of people lined up. And we were used to things and spoil that, and suddenly we see people, we see kids. Little quick story that really outside of the game, and that's what I think we came. It was just, and they were great athletes. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, no
a lot
question.
of players.
Yep.
A lot younger though.
Yeah.
You know, like their average was 21 years old.
Right.
22 years old. Ours was 26, 27, which makes a big gap. The guys are at their prime. But anyway, I see Bobby Orr, the great Bobby Orr. I wish he would have played. He just came out from surgery, and he was great. Phil Esposito. They're in the front, and then I got all the soldiers around, and we see all the kids. And to me, that tells you the whole series. And all these is Canada, Canada. You know, it's a K, right?
Yeah.
Canada, Canada. I says, why do they like us so much, right? And Phil says to Bobby, says, let's go. Well, we brought a lot of chocolate and sweet, because their sweet is, in those days, this has changed. It's not the same. I'm watching these guys at school. Well, they went through the soldiers. And suddenly they're giving things, and then you would see like the chocolate would fall, and the soldier would just step on the kids.
No way.
And everybody got mad. You know, says, what's going on? And probably the soldiers wanted it for themselves. But that showed you a little bit more than what it was all about. But none of us knew until we got back. We had a lot of telegrams and things so on, that how much of an impact to Canadians it meant.
Yeah.
When we landed in Montreal, there's Pierre Trudeau, Prime Minister again. We're in a fire truck, and